Welcome to Prose and Cons, a podcast by writers for writers, brought to you by Precipice Fiction. Precipice Fiction would like to acknowledge the people of the Eora and Durag nations as the original custodians and storytellers of the land this podcast was created on.
Everyone, welcome to the boardroom. We're in a boardroom today. We're playing around with some Zoom filters. From this boardroom, currently inhabiting this boardroom, we are Precipice Fiction, coming at you with another episode of Prose and Cons, a podcast by emerging writers for emerging writers. Because, sometimes we feel like prose, and sometimes we feel like cons, like me in this moment, who woke up not too long ago and is now
You're doing
trying to
great.
kick off the
We're in the boardroom. We're ready for the meeting.
We're in the boardroom.
Yeah.
Have my coffee under the desk. Welcome back. It's been a while. Personally, it's been a while for me. Moving around a lot, so it feels good to be here again. And you've all been around pretty regularly recently, yeah.
I mean, I live in New Zealand now. I work from home a lot, so I'm literally not moving very much in my day.
But you've been on the podcast recently? I actually haven't even.
Yeah.
Okay. I am here with Paddy Boylan.
Hello.
And James Healy.
How's it going?
And I am Phoenix, your host today. And today we're doing a bit of a open forum episode, which is in theme with this introduction to this episode, where we're just kind of gonna open the hood a little bit and just kind of talk about what we have going on in our personal writer worlds, maybe things we're trying to do, goals, things we're working on, styles, and just kind of open it all up and see where we go. Loosey-goosey. But before we get into the loosey-goosey stuff, we do have a tried and true tradition. Paddy, what are you currently watching, reading, getting into right now?
I am a bee's dick away from finishing the third book of the Wolf Hall trilogy, The Mirror and the Light. Yeah, The Mirror and the Light. My God, it's been a good ride. And I'm so close to finished. Yeah, it's absolutely
very
wonderful.
Short distance.
It is a very short distance. Oh, you're not familiar with bee's dick? It's very standard.
Is that a New Zealand thing?
I think it's an Australian thing. I don't know. I heard it on the castle. I even love to do an episode about the Wolf Hall trilogy sometime in the future, because I know a few of us have read it, and there is so much to talk about, especially in how she approaches prose, the author Hilary Mantel. That's me.
Right on. James?
Nothing really. I haven't really been reading.
James.
Yeah, I know. I let myself down. I've just been training a lot at the moment, so I have a lot of time for reading, training, and writing a lot. So that's my excuse.
Are you watching anything?
Nope. No.
Wow.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
That's good. That's good.
I have to pass on that one this week.
I feel like that's a first. I like it though.
Yeah.
Wow. For myself, I've continued reading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire in Spanish, the Spanish version. That's been going well.
What is the name of that in Spanish?
I want to say Harry Potter y La Copa de Fuego.
Very good.
Yeah, but it might be, I'm not sure if that's the word they used for goblet.
Gobleto de Fire.
Exactly. I didn't know you spoke Spanish. Okay.
Oh, see. Mucho Spanisho.
Wow.
I'm going to stop.
And then me and my partner just finished watching Charlotte, the new series on Netflix about Queen Charlotte. And that was very good. A very good example of parallel storylines from episode 1. Parallel storylines running.
Do you mean like multiple characters that have storylines that run concurrently with each other?
Yeah, in this case specifically older and younger versions of the same characters. So it's actually a time separated parallel arc.
Cool.
And it worked very well.
I've been watching Better Call Saul with my partner. We started watching it a little while ago and I kind of gave up on it. I don't know, I wasn't that into it, but it gets a lot better. And if you don't view it in the same light as Breaking Bad, with the incredibly high stakes and incredibly high tension, it's really, really good. That does parallel storylines really, really well.
I found it quite slow.
It picks up.
Yeah.
Did you watch the whole thing through?
I watched 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
One season ended with one of the characters was in a car crash. That was as far as I watched.
Okay.
And I felt like just too little was happening in general, so I kind of lost interest.
Fair.
I really liked how in Charlotte with the parallel storylines, it was really cool to see how they were able to create tension in the story with like how the storylines played off of each other because of like, for example, if you didn't have the storyline in the future, the expectations you would have for the like more present day storyline would be different. But because of certain information you have about the future, you know how certain things aren't going to happen. You know certain things are going to happen. So when you're watching the present day storyline, it adds this other element of like, how is this going to shake out? Because I know this is like this in the future, and it has to be this way. So like, what's going to happen?
That is quite cool. Yeah,
I haven't thought about writing a story where you know the destination at the beginning, and I guess then it becomes about how does it get there? How does the journey happen?
Well, there is a lot of, it's almost like cliche where the story starts at the end and then works towards that. But I'm trying to think of stories that do it, where it's not just a snippet of what happens. I really liked it in Live by Night.
No, not heard of
the
it.
gangster one. The opening line is something to the effect of, some years later, he was put in cement shoes and driven out into the ocean. So the opening line is this guy being taken out to like be killed and dumped in the sea. And he's a great writer. I'll just have to pull his name up real quick. Dennis Lehan, who is really, really good. He's written a few things that were really good. I know he worked on The Wire as well.
Oh,
so, that's great. The story then goes back to detail this like petty criminal and his rise to being like quite a high level guy.
Right. The Wire has been on my watch list for years now. I really want to get around to that.
You have not? Oh, check out The Wire, man. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's what everyone says.
Good. For a reason. Get on that. I'm almost jealous that you get to go back and start that from the beginning.
I feel the same way about people that haven't seen Breaking Bad yet. I really want to be able to erase my... If there was one thing I could erase my memory of, it would be, Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Start and then...
What have you been doing?
Dates as you go.
Still rereading Harry Potter in different languages. I'm Breaking Bad, man.
Yeah. Watch El Pato to Breako.
I was listening to one of our previous episodes and we were talking about Breaking Bad, and I was thinking about watching it because I watched I think episode 1 or maybe 2 episodes, and I did really like it.
It's one of those beautiful things that just gets better and better as it goes on as well.
Yeah,
that's what I've heard.
Strong writing, good character development. Yeah,
very much so.
Well, off of strong writing and character development, let's get into some of our strong writing and character development.
You're such a charmer.
you gotta find those segues. Anyway, what are each of us up to at the moment? James, what do you have going on in your creative writing world?
I'm finishing out the second draft of the first half of a novel that I'm calling Scavenger's Tread, which is sort of it's like children out on the street just screaming. I can't do anything about that because they're not my children.
Can't you, James? Can't you?
I could throw eggs, but I feel like that's inappropriate.
Yeah, probably.
So I'm writing a novel called Scavenger's Dread, which is I'm hoping a thrilling, fast-paced action horror, which I'm pretty happy with it as that so far.
Nice.
And thank you. Once I've had the second draft of that written up to the halfway point, I'm going to put that down and pick up a novel I've had on the back burner called Burnham, which is I don't really know what genre they call it, but it's something I'm really excited to pick up and start working on for the next few months.
Which I'm reading the first 10,000 words of, right?
Yes, that's kind of all that I have of that. So, well, to be honest, I have about 40,000 words more in various stages. But I've decided Bring Bardo is possibly going to have to be 3 books. So I want to start the first book as soon as possible, basically. Because I know where the character arc ultimately goes. I just think it's going to take me 3 books to get there. So
interesting that you have a plan to put a book down at the halfway mark and start again. Normally, like just having multiple unfinished projects is something that people stumble blindly into, but it sounds like you're planning for having multiple unfinished projects. I like that.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's that I don't want to spend the next 6 months just working on one project. Yeah. I know I'd love to have, if I could get 50,000 words of Bring Bardo written and nailed down, I know that I'll figure out so much more about storytelling in that time. And as well as that, I can get feedback on Scavenger's Tread. And both of those together can inform the next thing I start working on. And I kind of want to stagger it like that. Because I feel like you write a first draft, and then the time you spend redrafting that and fixing it and figuring out all of the things you did wrong with that first draft. When you sit down to write that next story, you write with a lot of those things in mind the first time around.
Absolutely.
You know you have to introduce a character with their character motivation. You know you kind of have to set up the theme from the beginning. You know that the plot has to go through a refusal of a call and then the mentor moment, and then you have to approach the cave and things like this. So each time you figure all the stuff out that you did wrong, I feel like the next time you go back and write something, you just have that in mind. So that's kind of the idea that I'm trying to get the first few novels written, figure out as many of those problems as quickly as possible, basically.
I think it makes sense. And we also talk a lot about, I feel like we talk a lot about the benefit of putting something away for a little bit and coming back to it because the wheels are going to be turning in the background. So this kind of bakes that into the process. Like if you're moving from project to project, you automatically have time to ruminate because you're putting it aside and work on something else.
Yeah. I feel like I need to give myself deadlines as well, because I know I could get bogged down in, I want to make this the perfect thing now, which is right where I am with Scavenger's Tread. I'm really trying to make some of the character introductions as strong as possible. But I know the end of the story hasn't been finished yet. So I'm going to have to go back and rewrite these character introductions. So I'm trying to get myself to just say, just leave it at that now. And you're definitely going to rewrite this maybe 4 or 5 more times once you know where the story ends. So go back and just put that down now, finish the story, and then come back later.
That sounds like a really healthy approach, honestly. Like the idea of having 3 novels going to me, I think you have 3, right?
I have 2 at the moment. There might be
2
a third rearing up out of the subconscious.
Because when I think of having even 2 going, it's like, I'm so glad I just have 1.
Yeah.
But the way you're framing it just sounds so manageable, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe I should have 2 going.
That's the trap.
Yeah, that's.
I'd like to think I'm separating them enough so that they're not gonna. I'm not just gonna blur one into the other.
And Paddy, what do you got going on?
For a long time, I wasn't writing anything. I had a big move to New Zealand. I was trying to restart my life in different areas that I won't get into. So I've joined the New Zealand Society of Authors, and every country has like a dozen of these at least, like different writer organizations. We're all part of Writers New South Wales, at least in theory. And writer organizations are great because they have things like competitions and opportunities that you wouldn't normally. Anyway, so I applied for a mentorship. It's where you get an experienced writer to take you on board and help you finish your manuscript and answer questions. And I was lucky enough to be accepted. So now...
Skilled enough.
Yeah. I've never written a novel. Like, to say I have novel writing skills is an absolute lie, but whatever. I've got this. And now I have to finish it. We'd like to do an episode about accountability sometime, and the things that keep you accountable and the things that hold you to the fire. I'm being held to the fire by this mentorship right now because I got to deliver. I've got until the end of the year to make the most of these sessions. And it's been really hard to... I don't know how people work full-time and carve out time to write. I mean, I guess they just do what they can on the bus or like in the tiny moments that they can steal. I need to get a lot better at that. And like, this is all making me realize I need to get a lot more efficient with my time because I'm going to write and I'm going to finish this book, but I need to do it around my life. Like, when do you guys, when do you carve out time for this stuff?
I have a very specific answer for this.
Good.
I carve out at least my minimum is, especially right now, because I've been doing a lot of editing and growing that part of my writing world, which has been growing pretty fast and pretty well, which is great.
So just for some context for the audience, Phoenix and I, but Phoenix to a greater extent, and James actually have editing gigs on Fiverr, and we've been trying to build those up and get an audience. And Phoenix, I think you're doing pretty well with that, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty well established at this point. I have some steady clients and I'm pretty far booked out, and I'm branching out into some other areas. It's a little too early to like officially say right now, but I'm branching out into some other areas with that. So it's been going very well, but to the point where it's consuming quite a bit of my time. It is my job. So it's like what I do. And so it is just a matter of carving out time editing other people's work versus writing my own work. So what I do is the first thing I do every day is, before I start into business or any of that sort of aspect, is I do 1 hour of writing, and I set a timer, and that's my hour. Whatever I write in that hour is what I write, and then that hour is done and I'm done. And I do it first thing. So it's like before I'm able to start other work, first I set that timer, I write. And it also makes sure that like my mind doesn't have other things running through it. When I first wake up, my mind's clearer. So I'm able to just do like, I don't know, it's more of a creative space. So it's easier to just channel straight into writing it without kind of the muddiness of other thoughts and ideas and my day kind of starting. So I set that hour, or like this week has been kind of crazy. So it's been like 45 minutes to an hour, something like that. And that's what I do. 45 an hour before I start my day, and that's a moving hour. It just needs to be the first thing I do, unless it's an exceptionally busy day. I make an excuse, but yeah, if not, I hold myself to that.
Okay, what about James?
So I work from 7 a.m. until about 3:30, in construction and demolition. And then I would have training from 5:30 until 8 o'clock. So in between work and training, I take a bus into where my gym is. I get something to eat, and I sit down for about an hour at a cafe, have a coffee for a full hour. I do it on my iPad, and then I email that to myself. And then when I come home from training, I transfer that into a document, read through it, and then just spend a bit of time thinking about what's going to happen next. Then I go to bed and I write that the next day, then what's going to happen next. And then I try to fit in my editing on the weekend. So that's pretty tight. It's not ideal, but it's how I've gotten 50,000 words of Scavenger's Trade sorted at the moment. So
yeah, that's good.
It's just a little bit every day. If it's 500 words, 1,000 words, be consistent with it every day.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just bash out 1,000 words every day, like 50 days, you've got 50,000 words. That's a really good chunk of a novel. That's a novelette.
Yeah, 50,000 words is already a novel. Like it's on the shorter end spectrum of a novel, but it's kind of in there.
Like a cheat, just end it there.
Yeah, and it's
Here's third act. Nah.
Bet you didn't expect the novel to end there. That's
art. What are you writing at the moment?
So what I've been working on is a novel I started a while ago based on a short story. The working title is A Completely Normal Place, but now the title's actually changing quite a bit to, I still like A Completely Normal Place, but it's changing to something like The Wound of Lysantha, something very different, or something like that, which Lysantha is a term created in the book. But I'm kind of in a rut at the moment, kind of. Like there were some previous chapters I wrote that were like just expanded, the world just like expanded in front of me and the story expanded in front of me. I got really excited. I'm in this really intimate, like very one-on-one character based chapter, 2 chapters actually. And I still like where the characters fit into the story. I still like the purpose of these chapters. I'm having a hard time getting like having these characters interact. Like it's very I don't know. It's just very character driven. It's very character dialogue based. So I'm having trouble getting my mind into these characters. And I'm thinking actually, because I have been very busy lately, not just with editing, but also for fun fact, Jose and I just moved from Chile to Spain. So we've been doing a lot of personal life shifting stuff, finding a place to live, doing quite a bit. So it's been hard to really, even with that hour, really get my mind in there. So I'm thinking I have some editing work that's going to finish in the next week, and then some other client stuff, but it's going to slow a little bit. I think I'm going to actually kind of purposely reduce some of the work I'm taking on to focus a little bit more on some other aspects of the writing world, like get into some more submissions and querying and getting into other aspects like that, other areas of how I manage myself, because right now it's been a little bit too one-sided with the editing. So I feel like I need to balance a bit more.
Yeah, it's hard to balance this stuff, especially when, writing's fun, but it's also kind of work. So you get a balance like work with work. It's a different kind of work. Like it feels better than like a 9 to 5, but it's challenging. It's tricky. It's something I struggle with and really, really trying to work on. I don't know, I just find time management in general something that's not easy. And I guess for anything that's like self-directed, like being a freelancer or writing, if you don't have a handle of your time management, it's gonna go poorly.
Yeah, I find if I have a day off, I'll manage my time terribly. It's when I have less time, but I have to be efficient with it.
I'm the same, man. I'm exactly the same. Yeah, when I come home from work, I'm like, all right, time to get stuff done. But if I got a day off, nope.
Yeah, you kind of feel like I've got 5 hours to write. I'm going to get so much done, and you might take 3 hours to sit down and do anything.
Oh my gosh.
3 o'clock.
I killed myself with this a few weeks back. I woke up on a Saturday and I was like I had like so much inspiration coursing through me. I was like, I could I just felt it. If like I sit down right now, I could go 6 hours today. Like I felt it, like maybe 6 hours broken up, but I was like, I got this. Like the stories in my head, I could channel so much out today if I did it. And I just didn't do it because like different the time staggering just got a little bit off, and it's that momentum thing. Like it took me a little bit too long to get to one aspect of my day, and then certain like things I needed to do ended up popping up, like things I actually needed to do, and like and just like the time of the day just got broken up in such a way where it just didn't happen. And honestly, after that, I kind of felt kind of deflated, and I was like, oh,
what's the point?
I lost steam. What's the point?
We've talked about, I think it might have been an Ali's creativity episode, flow state. Do you guys know the concept of flow state?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I found that a really beneficial episode because I've been sitting
it was
down
good, wasn't
when
it?
I can't stay off. Yeah, I'll sit down and I'll do something completely. I have like boxing wraps, and I'll just wrap my boxing wraps all at the same time. It takes about 20 minutes to wrap them all up, and I'll just do that and think about the story. And it's just a process of winding my finger around and around and around and around and around for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then I'll sit down and write. It's way better than watching TV or trying to read a book and then jump into it.
Yeah. This is like such a, obviously thing, but I've started turning my phone off when I need to get shit done, like, right. And I've started closing all additional tabs because I'm so bad with getting distracted. And it doesn't take you much to break flow state. Like you can be 100% like laser focused, and then something happens. I don't know, there's like a noise outside or a notification, and it takes you like another 20 minutes to get like back in that headspace again.
I find if I'm doing like a lot of editing, I almost like to have the phone there, and I'll pick up the phone and I have like a dating app or Tinder or something open. I'll just send a message, and it clears my head, and then I go back into the editing, and then it's like I'll edit for 5-10 minutes, buzz, and I'll send a message, and it's something about it just clears my head. It's like I pull out of it and then come back in again.
That's great. Tinder as a writing aid.
Yeah, it's something like just a change of focus, and then you just pop back in, and you're almost saying it's just small talk anyway. So it's like it's not anything you really have to think about, and you just jump back in. And I don't know why. I find that if I'm editing for like a long period of time, that breaks it up and it makes it like it helps the endurance.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you find like editing different to first pass writing in that regard?
Totally different.
Okay. Yeah.
Like if I'm like the way that I sit down and I write in a cafe in between work and lunch, like not a chance I could do that editing. I'd be too. I feel like I need to be more switched on for editing. I need to go into it with a different headspace.
I need to be more switched on for writing. I need to have the time really set aside and really pretty blocked out. It feels more, unless I am in a flow state, writing is more of an effort for me because it is like, well, it depends, but sometimes it is more of an effort. Whereas with editing, because I'm creating new road. Whereas with editing, I don't know, it's like the material's there. I have fun messing with it. It's like, I don't know, it's easier. Well, it depends. Sometimes if it's like a huge structural shift, it's like, okay, time to wrap my head around this. Like that can be a bit of a mental challenge.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
You're right that, it's there in front of you. It's like when you're editing, the pieces, they each have to move them around, which feels like a much less cognitively intensive task than dredging up new stuff from the depths.
The ether.
I don't know. That's the ether. Yeah, there we go. That's not the case with you, James? That's not how you...
I think it might be down to the way I wrote this story, because I spent time thinking about what was going to happen next the night before. So I kind of knew what had to happen. I just had to write the characters through it. And I would say that the first draft of this wasn't very well written. It was pretty bland. I kind of knew a bit about the characters, but there wasn't lots of character on the page as they were moving from one thing to the next. So the editing, the second draft of this was a lot heavier work than the first draft. The first draft for me was like, I've just got an hour. I just have to get the character from here to here. And that was kind of just a process of just trying to grind it out. So it may not have been the best approach, but it was the only one I had available with my timetable at the moment.
Yeah. The best approach is the one you can actually approach.
I have this is a bit of a slight change in topic, but when we were talking about this episode, we were talking about our personal writing styles and things. I don't know if we'll get too deep into this, but I did just want to throw this question out to each of you. How would you describe your individual styles?
Styles of like the process of writing, or like styles like the prose and the actual
writing
like the prose and stuff. Like if someone picked it up, what would you think would make someone go, "Oh, this is Paddy Boylan"? You can tell you can tell by the way he puts his. You could see because he puts Paddy Boylan after every 6 words. It's a very unique style.
I do like to write my name in constantly to my writing. People say to stop, but I say screw them. I mean, I'll tell you how James's writing seems, but
yeah, do that.
Okay, James is writing.
Here it is.
Yeah, it's to the point. There's a lot of space to breathe. It's not overly flowery, but when James will stop to describe something like a scene or something, he'll take a moment and he'll really like set that scene out, like create a vista. And then we move forward pretty directly. Again, there's not much flowery language or prose or something. And then we'll stop again and there'll be like another vista or like another thing we want to look at, which now I'm not saying that you are a Cormac McCarthy, you're good, but you're not Cormac McCarthy yet, that he does the same thing. He makes like an expansive vista and then he moves forward in this really like pared down way. And then another expansive vista and then pared down. And that was a lot of metaphors. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone but me, but that's, yeah.
It was very complimentary, so thank you.
I like your writing. I'm genuinely a fan of your writing, James. Yeah,
it's very high praise.
You are a good writer.
Thank you.
It's funny because when I think of this question, I more so think of your two styles instead of thinking of. Well, I think of my own style a little bit too. But it's like if someone asked me to describe Paddy, like or your style or James's style, I feel like I could. It's like, yeah, they definitely have styles. I've just never put words to it. But it's like my gut reaction is like, yes, they have styles, definitely. James, when I think of yours, it's like I would describe yours very abstractly as like black roses. That's what comes to mind. It's just like
Ooh.
I
like that.
That's good.
Dark,
that's good. Yeah,
dark, poetic.
Yeah,
like
and they smell like
vistas,
gasoline.
And they smell like gasoline or some haunting memory.
Sweet. Like that is. I feel like that's an element that I go for. So yeah.
Do you have a description for your own style, James?
The only thing that I think I could confidently say is that it's tense. For whatever reason, everything I write comes out tense. I think this just might be an instinct or a flourish I have. Maybe every sentence or maybe every scene I'm writing, for whatever reason, I lean it into a bit of tension, and I'm not sure if that's necessarily a good thing because I don't know if it's. I don't know if it always suits, but it just seems to be how everything turns out. So yeah, it's the one description I can confidently assert is that it's tense.
You write thrillers and suspenseful stuff, so yeah, it does suit.
Yeah, that is the way it goes.
What about you, Phoenix? How would you describe your own writing?
I describe it as inadvertently, I always end up writing very poetically. Like I can't help but describe things in like one thing I have learned is like there are times to be very straightforward and just boop 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 boop. And so I do that, and the writing opens up when I do, and it's great. But I really love like bending perceptions of things. Like I love like in this thing I'm doing right now, I'm creating a lot of weird personifications, and I love them. Like a lot of things are becoming characters. Like things like a lot of just presences in the world are also characters as well. And like
in how literal a sense, like do they have dialogue, or is it more like the storm has a sort of temperament kind of?
Is it that the characters interpret them as like other beings, the same as themselves?
It's like a little bit of that, as well as a little bit of narrative personification as well, where it's there's a little bit of line bending. Like in some cases it has a presence in the world where it's almost interpreted as an actual being, and then in other cases it's actually just given as a visual where the reader can understand it as a being, but the character's interactions with it can be interpreted as a being. But ultimately it's not definitively said this is a being. It's just like a fun way of looking at it. It's a new way of like giving it texture and life and stuff. So I do a lot of that. Like one little phrase that sums up my style very well is that instead of saying like a loud sound, I'm more likely to say a loud smell. Like I love bending sensory interactions.
Yeah, kind of synesthetic.
Yes, synesthetic. That's a big thing that comes into my writing quite a bit.
I like that.
I would describe your writing as being quite warm. That's something I've noticed. I feel like the narrative voice that you use, there's a lot of warmth to it. I kind of feel like the narration takes the reader quite gently through the story. It's really nice.
I totally agree with that, actually. Your stuff is definitely warm. It's kind. There's
warm.
A kindness to the writing.
That's very true.
That is not present in James's.
No, it isn't.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Your writing is pretty...
going the other way.
Yeah. Which is great. which is great.
They're definitely different vibes. I find your style makes it very easy to read Phoenix, which I think is
cool.
It's very nice.
That's cool that's what comes out. Because kindness inadvertently is something, like as you said it, I'm like, oh, I do that a lot. It is a theme that seeps in. Paddy, I love your style, and I'm gonna try to put words to it right now because I can say I love it, but I've never described it before. But I feel like you do a great job, or this is what I see in it. It's like you explore the mundane in a very gripping way. Like the flashes.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because like I'm just thinking of snippets from, I can't remember the name of the novel you're working on right now, but the bits that I have, Sovereignty, yeah. The bits that I have read, it's like this very internal, like this one character's internal world is showcased very heavily to the reader, and it's like these mundane tasks, but it's like it has this tension to it that's really like, I want to read this character's life, and it feels like so much is happening, but at the same time nothing is happening. I've only had a little bit.
That's what I'm going for. One of my favorite, well, they're not a director pairs. Do you know the Coen brothers? Do you guys know the Coen brothers? They did The Big Lebowski and No Country for Old Men, and I absolutely love their shit. And you could say that a lot of films, does anything really happen? But it happens in such a beautiful way. Like they take very mundane situations and characters and stuff that's really everyday, and they find quirks in it, and they find charm in it, or they find something surprisingly menacingly in it. I absolutely love that. You know, I don't know how much you guys think of cinema when you're writing. I think of cinema a lot. Like when I write a scene, I'm often thinking about it as moving picture. I guess we're all grown up on television and movies and stuff, so we can't help it. But I absolutely love slower moving films that they want to keep the camera on one particular scene and hold it there, or they want to keep it on one particular still and just like absolutely milk every moment for what it's worth. If you say that comes through my writing, then I'm very happy about that.
It definitely comes through.
There's a Japanese word which I learned recently. I don't remember what it is, but it basically means like negative space. Like, you know, say you're watching an anime and they'll have like a completely still frame and nothing's happening, and like a single leaf will fall or something like that. Do you know the kind of moment I mean?
Yep.
Things like that. The emptiness that creates it's not empty like there's something missing, like the emptiness is a thing in and of itself. I don't remember where I'm going with this, but that's a cool thing.
Yeah. I feel it.
Is that something that you try to embody in your writing and your style?
Yeah, it is. I think it's a really beautiful and interesting concept. And there's a lot of tension inherent in it, even though it's not a moment that's tense.
I feel like your style with Sovereignty feels almost different from some of the other stuff of yours that I've read. I think you've got a lot of really beautiful writing. Certainly in
wordy.
I wouldn't say that, and I wouldn't say flowery if flowery sounds like demeaning, but it's very, I don't know, it's like kind of almost archaic, but then very poetic at the same time. I feel like Traitor and Bohemond had that, which made them very, very engaging. But I feel like that same style comes across at certain scenes in Sovereignty, like the scenes that Phoenix was describing, that makes those kind of mundane things suddenly really impactful and really interesting. I'm thinking in particular of the lawn mowing scene, which is one of my favorites in the whole thing. It's that kind of language that when it comes in, it you use it more sparingly in Sovereignty, and it's really, really effective as a result.
That was deliberate. I wanted to take a step back from being, I mean, I'm going to say it, overly verbose and just like try and tell the story in a more straight way. We'll see what happens.
I think it's very effective so far.
Yeah, very effective.
I'll say in 50,000 words time.
Another question I had, which is something some people might be interested to hear. We mentioned writing New South Wales, and like we all had interactions with that. I think my membership has expired at this time, but I do like what they do, so I do stay associated with them or keep tabs on what's going on with them. Paddy, you've gotten involved with a writing group in New Zealand. And I was just kind of curious to see, because I know one thing I'm going to start doing in Spain, maybe it's not in Spain, maybe I have to branch out into like the London community or something like that. I don't know. But I guess how do we each engage with our local writing worlds? James, I know you're you've got a move coming up to Ireland soon. Do you have any plans for how you want to engage?
Yeah, I'll be definitely looking for writing groups or writing organizations in the small town that I moved to. I'm sure there'll be something in the local area. There probably won't be the same selection as Dublin because I was involved with groups in Dublin. But of course, there's so much choice there. So I'll see what's around and what's available. Or if there isn't that much, I may travel up and down to Dublin kind of whenever I can in order to stay in contact, stay like with other writers and have other people reading my work and stuff. Or Zoom meetings, there's always people still meet up on Zoom.
Yeah. Online is just so easy now.
Yeah.
And Paddy, are you so you got this mentorship?
Yes.
So are you engaged with New Zealand in any other ways, or what made you want to reach out to? And what's the name of the organization again?
NZSA, so New Zealand Society of Authors, I'm going to say. There's something, this is my first time moving country, and there's something about moving country where I've actually loved the experience because it forces you to reset. And it's like, ooh, I got to make all these connections. I got to meet people. I have never networked as hard in my life as I have now. I don't think I have ever networked before. But when you make a deliberate, like, I am going to make connections in this city, I am going to join organizations, stuff like that. I mean, I've been doing it really hard and it's already given some really great dividends. Like I teach a writing class now. I'm part of the board for the Canterbury branch of NZSA. Like I'm doing their social media, which it's not paid, but it's like a way to make connections and stuff. Yeah, they just like, they needed someone to do it. I'm like, I can use social media. And that's all for the end of meet more writers, make more opportunities, meet people that can, I know, well, when I finish this book, I'm going to want to try and publish it. I'm going to want to try and find an agent and shit. So start now. I'm really making an effort to do the whole networky, meeting people-y thing, and it's paying off. But then, of course, I've also got you guys. So, I mean, Precipice Fiction has been so good for just like having a constant connection. Like it's been invaluable, honestly. Again, for anyone that's just listening, like we're all part of like a six-headed monster, and we've written an anthology and we read each other's stuff, and we've got like a constant Facebook Messenger group where we talk writing, and it's great because we're all kind of in the same place in our journey as well. We're pretty much near the beginning. We're all really ambitious. Yeah, it's that, in person, the New Zealand stuff, and online, you guys.
That's so cool. I forgot, I wanted to ask you about this teaching thing. So you are teaching an English class now. Is that it?
It's an English class. It's actually, it's purely writing. Yeah. It's a school for like young people. I teach like 15-year-olds. So they're in their second year of high school. I love it. These kids are so smart. They're so smart and talented. It blows me away. Like I read their writing and it's, I also do like the editing gigs. Some of it is like significantly better than some of the adult writing that I'm supposed to edit. Like, I tell the kids like, your writing is really good. And I think sometimes they just think, oh yeah, like you're my tutor, of course. You're going to say that. Like, no, it's really good.
I stress that with my clients and stuff, because I really don't say, I hold myself accountable. I don't just say something's good if I don't actually think it's good or if I don't actually like it. So when I do tell someone this is actually very good, sometimes I will put, I really don't just say that to people. Like, this is very good. You're good. Like, I like your style.
Yeah.
I will find nice things to say if I'm not going to tell someone their writing's good. I don't just say, your writing's not good. Like, I have constructive notes, but the compliment I'll give them is more around like, I like your idea, or like, and then I'll be upfront, like there's work to do here, but I like this aspect of it. I like how you played with this. Like, there's something good to call out all the time. But yes. Is that you raising your hand?
Yes, I am raising my hand. Okay. Sensei. When you did that episode on, was it like how not to provide editing feedback?
Breaking down editing notes?
That was like how not to provide feedback or something. I'm not crazy. There was an episode you hosted, I'm pretty sure. And I remember this story.
We did an episode on feedback, and part of that might have been how not to do feedback.
Yeah, could have been that. That sounds
maybe it was that. It was a little while ago, but you told me about you had a client recently who had an editor who told them basically like, this is bad, the story's bad, the writing's bad, there's nothing good about this, it's irredeemable. Do you remember this story at all, Phoenix?
I remember this story. I think it was someone else that told it. I don't think it was me, but
okay.
But I have honestly, it could have been me though. Every now and then there is someone that recounts a horror story of working with an editor. Oh, I think I know what you mean, because I did talk about this a little bit. Just like, some editors are not very constructive and are just saying like, do say things like, you should not be writing, this is not good writing, blah 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 blah. It's terrible.
Jeez.
Yeah. that really stayed with me. I think about that surprisingly often, and just how brutal that is.
And it's just not constructive. It's a very shit thing to do.
What do you do for local community, Phoenix?
So I've been moving. It's kind of interesting in the sense that like I've been moving country a lot lately. So Jose and I moved from Australia in the last year. We moved from Australia to the United States, from the United States to Chile, and now from Chile to Spain. So we've been jumping quite a bit, and our plan is we plan on being in Spain for a bit. So it's kind of made it difficult to really like lay roots and find local community because we are moving so much. So there's kind of an innate like resistance to kind of looking around. So now I am curious to now start planting roots a little bit and like seeking out some writing community here. But it also adds and this is something I'm so curious about. I think it feels cool, but like, you know, I'm in Spain. The national language here is Spanish. Specifically, I'm in Barcelona, which is part of Catalonia. So there's two languages going on, Spanish and Catalan. And English is a lot like people speak it, but it's not like when you go into a bookstore, the primary books you're going to see are not going to be in English. So writing communities here are not centered around my native language, but I do speak a bit of Spanish. So it's this cool, like, I don't know, it feels like some cool opportunities to get into writing communities that exist in other languages, which isn't something I thought about much when I was in an English-speaking country. The fact that there are literally parallel running writing universes, some that don't get translated into other worlds, but just stay in their languaged world. But every language has a writing world, universe, authors that are big, like all these things. So now I'm kind of stepping into another sphere and kind of thinking about how I want to go about that, as well as there is, England is near. So I might look into that community as well as my closest English speaking community. But yeah, so I don't really have a definitive answer, but this is something I've been thinking about. It's like, how do I want to plug into the community here? And it's something I'll be tackling.
Challenging, I think, I don't know how good your Spanish is. Like, it seems like you can get by, but it's going to be really challenging before you have like a really, really strong, fluent grasp of it.
I'm bridging on fluent. Like it's going pretty well. It's like when Jose and I have days now where we don't speak in English, or full. Sometimes it's like, all right, no English for 4 days, and we'll go that length and just use Spanish, and it's great. But then sometimes, especially my ear exposure is very big at this point, but like the number of accents that I've had to incorporate by moving around so much has made it like sometimes I do have trouble understanding different accents and stuff like that. So I do still have to ask what, or like, could you repeat that and stuff, just when someone's speaking really fast. But when it's accents I'm used to, as well as if I have time to relax with the person and really like, all right, here we are, I can understand quite well. But it's still to the point where it would be challenging to like, I wouldn't try writing a book in Spanish yet, or at least not a novel or short story or anything like that. As well as I don't know what I would provide to a Spanish writing group at this moment, but definitely within the next year for sure.
And even Spanish phrasing might work the other way as well, and that Spanish phrasing might change your approach towards writing things in English as well.
Yeah, that's a
true.
Really interesting point. Being multilingual and how that would affect the way you approach language.
It does happen. Like especially if we're going through a long period of just using Spanish, I have trouble sometimes writing to texting one of my family members, and like my word structure changes, and I'm like, focusing. Like I do need to think about it. Another weird phenomenon that I've experienced for the first time is after a long period of speaking in Spanish, I was talking to my mom. Very tangent, but here we go. I was talking to my mom, and I was speaking English out loud, but in my mind, I could hear the Spanish. So I was actually speaking two languages at the same time. And I've never experienced that before. And I was like, wow, this is far out.
That's seeing the Matrix right there. That's
yeah, wild.
I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that when you start to dream in another language, that's when you know that you've achieved fluency. How true that is, I don't know, but it sounds cool. It sounds like it's saying that I'll repeat.
I have an interesting experience with that, because I'd heard that like right when I started learning, before I was learning Spanish, I was learning Italian. So I had heard that like very early into my learning, And so I think it was either that night or within that week, I had a dream in the other language, but I only understood what I understood in my waking life. So there were just like a few words that I could understand.
Thanks, brain.
Yeah. So in my case, it is not true. But I think there is truth to that as well. Off of that language tangent, James, I think you have a quote for us. Oh, this is it. This is quote town. It's coming at you, James.
Oh, no. So the quote, style is that which indicates how the writer takes himself and what he is saying. It is the mind skating circles around itself as it moves forward. That's by Robert Frost.
Thank you, Robert Frost.
Thank you, Robert Frost.
And just before we go, we do have an anthology called The New Mythic. It's up for a few awards now, which is pretty cool. So, if awards impress you and you're curious to read us, check that out. It's on Amazon. We'll also be at Supernova over in Sydney. We'll have, I think it's Ali and Alex are going to that one. So Supernova, if you're not familiar, it's basically like a Comic-Con, a big convention over in Sydney. We'll have a presence there. We'll have a booth. You can buy The New Mythic as well as some comics that Ali's going to be bringing, some horse, The Golden Hour, which is Alex's anthology. He'll be selling that as well. As well as if you just wanted to come over and say hi. We love talking about this stuff if you haven't guessed yet. So feel free to just go over and talk about it with us. As well as if you have liked this podcast, if you've enjoyed listening to us talk about our writing worlds, ourselves.
Of course they
yes.
have. Of course they have. You have, right?
Yes.
You have.
You have.
Think about it hard.
You said this long.
You're at the end of this episode. You've enjoyed it. So if you have, leave us a review. Reviews do help people find these podcasts. So if you have enjoyed it and want other people to enjoy it as well, leave a review. Oh, one more thing. If you have something to say about what we've been talking about today, if you have ways of getting plugged into your local community or things about your own style or things you want to talk about, feel free to reach out with us. Or if you have further topics you'd want us to talk about, reach out. You could go to precipicefiction.com. There's a contact us button there. Send us an email. We will talk to you too. And with that, we'll say goodbye and we'll talk to you next time. See you later.
You're listening to Prose and Cons, the Precipice Fiction podcast.